One second. For some reason, the actual start meeting button is not displaying for me.
I don't have it on my end, Mike. Do you need to leave and
Yeah, let me leave and then
come
rejoin.
back? All right.
You the host here.
Hopefully it won't end things. Yeah. If you make me host, it shouldn't end it.
Yeah, it says.
Oh, I can see start webinar. Would you like me to just...
go ahead and press that then. Yeah. For some reason it wasn't shown on mine.
All right, I'm gonna start.
All right, welcome everybody. We'll get started in just a moment here. I just want to give people a chance to get their audio dialed in here. All right, sweet. So before I hand it off, I just want to cover a few technical logistics about this platform. If you haven't joined us for an ACRO webinar in the past, we use Zoom webinar, which is extremely similar, as you can probably tell, to Zoom meeting with a few key differences. The most notable is that your cameras and microphones are disabled by default, so you don't have to worry about interrupting us, but it does mean that your options for interaction are limited to either the chat or the Q&A. So if you have a comment or if you have any kind of technical issue, you can go ahead and put that in the chat there. Just make sure if you want everyone to see it that you select everyone from the drop-down menu. And then if you have a question for our presenter today or for us, then you can use the Q&A button and you just have to click it and pop your question in. You can ask questions anonymously, you can view existing questions, you can upvote them, and you can also add your own comments to those questions. So without further ado, I want to hand it off to Melanie Gottlieb. Melanie?
Thanks, Mike. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today. I'm Melanie Gottlieb. I'm the Interim Executive Director at ACRO, and I'd like to welcome you to this afternoon's webinar with Dr. Randy Cosentino, the President of the U.S. Naval Community College, who will share some insights gained on the journey to create this new higher education institution. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping details. As always, we are hopeful that our technology will not fail us. I know that many of you have rejoined your campuses, but at ACRO, we are still working from home. And so we are working at the mercies of our home Wi-Fi's. We've been lucky so far. You can use the chat freely while on the webinar. If you have a question for Dr. Cosentino, please use the Q&A section to ask that question and we will get to it at the end. So without further ado, I am going to turn the mic over to Dr. Cosentino.
Thank you so much, Melanie, and thank you so much for having us today and letting us talk a little bit about some of the work we've been doing with the new U.S. Naval Community College. I'm excited to join those of you who are able to join us live, or those of you who might be logging in after the fact to take a look, and really excited to talk about what we're working on. I will note from a housekeeping perspective, I may not be able to see your chat or Q&As that come in the moment they do, but I know that Melanie will be helping to moderate. And so she has something that is a more timely question. I've encouraged her to not hesitate to interrupt me, and otherwise we'll make sure we have ample time at the end for Q&A. But again, excited to join you all today and talk a little bit about the USNCC. So first and foremost, before I get into what this is all about, let me provide a little background and context in terms of why a U.S. Naval Community College and why now. First and foremost, a lot of this work really dials back to 2018 when a study was put together with a big cross section of those from inside and outside the fence line in terms of looking at the role of education to support the evolving mission demands of human capital throughout the Navy, Marine Corps, and otherwise. And one of the things that it identified was the real need to, in an increasingly ambiguous environment, in an environment that requires new technology, the use of data, the use of pushing decision-making down to lower and lower levels, the need to collaborate, to communicate, that really necessitated an investment in and a commitment to education across the enlisted and officers of our naval services. When I say naval services, I'm really referring to our Navy, our Marine Corps, and our Coast Guard. And one of the recommendations that came out of that report was to establish a U.S. Naval Community College. Some of you may be aware of the Community College of the Air Force, which is another example of when one of the military branches has established its own community college and how that works. And there are some similarities and some differences we'll talk a little bit about in a bit. But the idea is the same, which is the importance of providing education to our enlisted service members. So really, the USNCC was established in early 2019. That went forward to the Secretary of Defense, and we began our work in May. We wrapped up our pilot one earlier this year with around 500 some odd students, and we are actively engaged in planning for our second pilot. We'll talk more about in just a moment. So what is the USNCC? First and foremost, I'd like to start with our mission because it really drives everything that we do. Our goal is to advance warfighting advantage and operational readiness. The way we intend to do that is by providing world-class naval relevant education to our globally deployed service members, in this case, our enlisted service members in the Navy, the Marine Corps, and to some degree, the Coast Guard as well. As you look at the vision part, there's some other components that also shed important light, and that is that connection of education to lifelong learning. You know, while our primary emphasis is to make sure we're preparing our service members in a more lethal and more effective naval services, it's also to recognize that those same service members and may have an interest in pursuing ongoing education in the form of bachelor's degrees and master's degrees. Then there's also the alignment of what we're doing in the fields that we're choosing to career fields that extend beyond one's time in the services as well. On top of that, another thing you'll notice in that vision is that connection to some of those 21st century skills, everything from ethical decision-making to information literacy, critical thinking, et cetera. A lot of that grounded in the maritime environment. We'll talk more about that in just a moment. And then I like to flag some of the features that really make what we're doing unique. First and foremost, the USNCC is going to be delivered in consortium. Again, those of you who are familiar with the Community College of the Air Force are familiar that students go to a whole host of different institutions to pursue their education. In the case of the USNCC, we're looking to put together a set of more targeted partnerships with a select group of schools that are both military friendly, support both access and student success, that can recognize prior transfer credit, that can make sure they're providing differential impact both in the fields that they're being asked to teach in, and also in terms of the outcomes, in terms of supporting those military members and those working adults. So consortium is what we're delivering. And we'll talk more about this as well, but we as the USNCC want to deliver the components of the program that we're best suited to deliver. And we want those partner institutions to deliver the components that they're best suited to deliver. You already heard me talk about it stretching across the Navy and the Marine Corps and the Coast Guard. Those naval relevant concentrations are critically important, as are the notion of the stackable certificates. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit. We want to make sure, recognizing as working adults, many of you serve, they come in, they come out of education, they have competing priorities on their time. We don't want to make it such that the earliest they're earning a credential is upon completion on the associates, but ensure that we are able to help them get value and recognize what they learn as they go. You heard me talk already about the 21st century skills. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then equally importantly to that lifelong learning is those strong four-year transfer pathways. We want to make sure that each of our programs connects directly to a four-year transfer to a bachelor's program with minimum to no loss of credit, and ideally has options as to bachelor's programs it connects to. In addition, we're going to ensure that our delivery is fully online. We're supporting a globally deployed set of service members, so we need to be able to reach them where they're at, which could be all around the globe, not to mention on ship. And then finally, we really want to make sure, and we'll talk more about this, and particularly within this audience of ACRO, that we're maximizing credit for training, that we're taking into account what the service member has already demonstrated they know how to do or have learned through their training, through their various schoolhouses, through their ratings or MOSs, and that we translate that to college credit as well where appropriate to help support making sure that student can get credentialed for the things they've accomplished. So this is a slide that talks about what we're hoping to develop and deliver and what we're working towards. And our primary degree will be the Associate of Science degree. We've chosen the Associate of Science for its transferability, again, that connection to four-year transfer pathways. But as you go towards that Associate of Science, you heard me talk about stackable certificates. The notion here is in each of the program areas we identify, the students will have an opportunity to earn 2 certificates as they progress towards that associate's program. That first one we'll talk more about in a moment is that Naval Studies certificate. That's that part that you heard me mention that the USNCC will be delivering. On top of that, the students will have a certain number of additional general education requirements they need to meet. And then they'll have an opportunity to earn another certificate, what we often call a professional certificate, in that concentration area that they're studying. Add those 3 components together as they go, you then complete the Associate of Science degree. This is going to enable those to pursue the program in a fashion that's going to make sense for them, and again, get value for being able to demonstrate what they've achieved as they continue to move through the program. And this view gives you a little bit more of a breakdown about what those 3 steps you just saw represent. So ultimately, I'll start in the lower left-hand corner, that Naval Studies certificate. This is the USNCC portion for the delivery. And the goal here is to make sure that we're taking otherwise what would have been general education credits, some of your philosophy, your political science, and your history, and we're navalizing them, and we're embedding them in a navalized context where we can teach those important skills, those 21st century skills, such as critical thinking, communications, writing, information literacy, but do it in a fashion where we're grounding it in a common understanding of the naval context in which our sailors, Marines, and Coast Guardsmen and women are operating. And the way we look at this is a stackable set of courses. The Naval Ethics and Leadership comes first, and it's really based on a philosophy course. And I should say all 5 of these are really born from what happens in a lot of our naval ROTC programs, and were built in sort of reference to those programs. But starts with that Naval Ethics and Leadership program course, where it's really your individual relationship to the naval services, your responsibilities, ethics, etc. Then it provides some of the historical context and understanding, a la history course, moves on to naval force design and concepts, which is really understanding the naval services organizationally and how organizational management and structure impacts success. And then moves it up to an entire sort of domestic level, and understanding the civil military organization and policies, in a sense, a bit around civics with an emphasis on understanding the military's role. And then the capstone of that program is a geopolitics course, which is really designed to help our service members understand more about our allies and adversaries in the context that the naval services plays across the world. And so those 5 courses, as you might have already gathered, directly connect with some of the general education requirements, but do it in a fashion where the subject matter being studied is relevant to the Navy. You move from there, and that's an opportunity to earn a certificate that the USNCC will deliver. You move from there to take some additional general education that might be required. May very well be your maths, your sciences, your languages, as the case may be. And then we will give our service members the opportunity to participate in one of likely 15 concentrations as we envision it. You can see a breakdown all the way to the right in terms of what those program areas are looking like. I mean, all of this is still a work in progress and may change as priorities shift and needs shift, but we are in the process of planning for and building out towards our Government thinks in fiscal years. So really this is October 22 through to the end of calendar year 23. The 7 programs you see here, the cyber, data analytics, the aviation maintenance, logistics, org leadership, military studies, and nuclear engineering are the first programs that we'll be focusing on. As you'll see that these concentrations, those and the ones that follow, it's a mix of technical and non-technical programs. Our point of view around this is we want to make sure that all of the various ratings and MOSs or roles that the service members play within the Navy and Marine Corps and Coast Guard have at least one, if not more, programs that will make sense for them, but not such that we're doing one-to-one, where every specific role or position may have its own program. For those of you familiar with CCAF, you may know that there are dozens and dozens of programs that are much more narrowly construed and relate to the specific skill sets of various ratings or MOSs. We're trying to stick with slightly broader pathways that will provide a grounding that could then scaffold that student and lead that service member to multiple different pathways from that point forward. So there's branching that can happen after you've achieved one of these associate degrees. I'm going to pause for just a second, Melanie, just to see if there is any, and just give you an opportunity if any questions have come up. Otherwise, I will keep pressing.
Nothing pressing. Keep going. There are some that we're going to save for the Q&A.
You got it. So sorry, this is a bit of an eye chart for people, but thought it would make sense as we're building something from scratch to talk a little bit about how we think about what we're trying to accomplish, and particularly to understand when you're, again, starting an institution from scratch, an institution that's designed to be an online institution, an institution that's designed to work in consortium, an institution that's trying to take into account taking students from multiple service members, that's building into the process credit for prior training and experience, that enables students to take courses both at the USNCC and at other institutions, that doing that is not always easy. And it takes some foresight from the outset when we think about what that learning ecosystem looks like. In many ways, being able to start an institution from scratch affords both unique opportunities and unique challenges. We're not burdened with a whole lot of legacy systems, although we do have to integrate with some, but we're not burdened with a lot of legacy systems that might have been designed for a different purpose and now have to be repurposed. We have the unique opportunity to try to put a solution together that is custom made for what we're doing. Our role in that, when we think about our student life cycle and ecosystem, we think about the tools, the technologies, the services, and the other things that we need to make things work. We have the opportunity to build on, top of the line COTS, commercial off the shelf, SaaS, software as a service type of solutions to make sure that we're bringing a best of breed solution to our students, and one that will support meeting them where they are at and supporting them throughout their academic journey. So in terms of the parts of that have been broadly communicated and are underway, we are working within our student information system and a CRM and building our platform on Salesforce. And we're using a lot. We use sort of within the Gov Cloud, but we're using a lot of what comes and has been developed within the Ed Cloud for those schools of you out there that are using Salesforce to be able to capitalize on a lot of the great work that have come before in terms of working on the Salesforce platform and serving and supporting and communicating with students and measuring, et cetera. We'll be launching Blackboard as our LMS. And that is our LMS for the courses that we, the USNCC, will directly be teaching. We will be working with the partner schools' LMSs when it comes to courses that they will be teaching. And then we're building in all sorts of other support in there, from making sure we have robust data reporting to be able to do proactive measurement and intervention, robust wraparound student support that will come in part from our direct coaching, but also will heavily utilize and capitalize on the resources, both academic support resources and proactive coaching resources that our partner schools bring to the table. We'll have a robust set of communications modules to be able to communicate with prospective students, applicants, and all of the rest of our students. And then we have a whole data integration pillar. And that is because, as you might imagine, when you're building this type of new entity within larger structures, much like if you were doing it with a corporation or otherwise, we have other points that we need to work across the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Coast Guard. And that's whether it's understanding data and validating who people are, all the way to making sure that we can capitalize and get access to their joint services transcript, their JST, to be able to ensure they get credit for their training, to making sure that we feed the courses and the credits that they're earning back into their service records and otherwise. So there is that whole data integration component to what we're doing as well, all in support of that broader student life cycle you see on the top. And so, we're taking a crawl, walk, run approach. Like I said earlier, we wrapped up our first pilot of 550 students, which really we'll talk more about in a moment, but allowed us to validate some of our concepts, and moving towards those 5,000 students as we are building out some of these key systems that will help us support the student life cycle at scale. Happy to talk more about this if there are specific questions as we get to it. But let me talk a little bit more about some of the why behind this, from a service perspective, our Navy, our Marine Corps, and our Coast Guard, and also from a service member perspective. From the service perspective, you saw it in our mission and our vision. We believe, and the Department of the Navy believes across the Navy and the Marine Corps, that naval relevant college education is going to fundamentally support operational needs and improve that warfighting advantage and that operational readiness. Excuse me. And on a related note, there is a fundamental belief as well that those 21st century skills are becoming increasingly necessary across all ratings and MOSs to make sure that we're developing individuals who can be problem solvers, who can be intellectually capable of meeting the challenges, not just of today, but of tomorrow. And education is one of the best ways to do that. In addition, we very much believe that we need, and the military subscribes very much to what's sometimes called ready relevant learning or just-in-time learning. It happens in the schoolhouses and the trainings and whatnot, but all of it is so that the learning builds on itself and leads towards pathways to additional education. And so from the service perspective, as people continue to move up the various rankings, there is the need for greater education. And by embedding and getting folks access to associate's degrees in naval relevant pathways, we give them the opportunity to be able to continue on in that path, to get bachelor's, to get master's, to continue to step up and be able to take on greater challenges that comes with promotion or ascension. Finally, that investment in education can help make sure that folks are getting into that habits of mind for continuous learning, for professional leadership, and for mastery in critically important skill areas. And a lot of this might look at, like for many of you who work with corporations out there, it's making sure that you are able to grow your own folks who are prepared to take on the greater and greater challenges in a lot of hard to fill areas, like you saw earlier, cyber, data analytics, et cetera. So those are some of the benefits that the service sees from this, and some of the reasons why the service is funding the education for those students who participate in this program. From a service member perspective, this is a similar set of values in terms of those students that are pursuing institutions, those working adults that are pursuing institutions at so many of the folks that are on here. First and foremost, this is fully funded from their perspective, and we are covering throughout our sort of 5-year plan books, as well as fees, as well as direct instructional costs. We are creating those direct educational pathways with institutions who are incredibly military friendly, that recognize the challenges that come with the op tempo of being in the military, deployments, balancing multiple responsibilities, that are going to be able to be supportive of that military service member. We're ensuring that they can get education in naval relevant areas, but those areas also connect to those high demand areas in the private sector. And whether someone is making their career and plans to re-enlist once or multiple times throughout their career, that when they exit upon retirement, that they have been able to pursue an in-demand field. In addition, I think that they'll value that there's online and flexible course schedules and delivery options. We ultimately hope to support a number of our service members on ship and in low bandwidth environments, particularly with our courses, hopefully with others over time, so that nothing really can impede their progress towards their degree. You heard me talk about that wraparound student support, both ours and the partner schools. And then moreover, as we know, one of the real advantages of joining the military and participating as an enlisted service member is your access to your TA or VALID benefits. And none of what we're doing will take away from that. It is only additive. So you can continue to use those benefits towards a bachelor's degree, towards a master's degree. And of course, you already heard me talk a lot about the fact that you can earn stackable credentials as you go. So quickly, I'll just summarize sort of where we have come and talk a little bit about where we're going, maybe dig a little deeper into a few areas of interest, and then happy to take questions. We have wrapped up our formal pilot, which was a 6-month pilot with about 550 students in those 4 areas. The purpose of this pilot was really to try to understand interests, motivations, challenges, whatever we needed to know about how to approach partnership and supporting students as we move forward. We were able to work with a mix of students across the services, the E4 to E9 or the rankings, how long they've been in the service. We were excited that 40% of these were first generation college students, ability to have an impact that goes far beyond just that individual seeking the degree, but can hopefully touch on families and communities as well. 46% did have prior education experience, and less than half had taken an online course before. So we're also introducing them in many cases to online learning. We were very satisfied with the feedback we got through the pilot, both in terms of the students expressed high levels of satisfaction with their experience, with the partner institutions, the relevance of the courses. And we also gained and learned some critical areas as well that we've been able to feed into pilot 2 and beyond. And where we are right now is we're currently in what we're calling the Bridge program. This is a program where some of those initial students that had only frankly been volunteered to take the first 2 courses have chosen to stay on and take a bridge program at the current institution while we're getting ready to stand up our long-term programs, and they will have the opportunity to move into pilot 2. And then for pilot 2 begins this coming January, and we will be growing from that 550 to those 5,000 students. We'll bring in those 7-degree programs you saw mentioned on the earlier slides. And we currently there are open processes in terms of the partner institution selection, et cetera. We, as I mentioned, will be delivering the Naval Studies core courses. Our partner institutions will deliver the Gen Ed and the professional concentration. And again, all of those courses will be delivered in an online format. This is a little bit about the timing in terms of when each of those 7 program areas will come online. And our plans to be able to, when we're going to begin classes on this, and by that January 2023, that would be that path towards those 5,000 students, mix of Navy and Marine Corps. From the USNCC perspective, our perspective is each and every one of these programs are relevant and are in support of the naval services and moving forward. And so from a USNCC perspective, each of these programs are offered to any of the 700,000 plus enlisted service members. That being said, the services themselves and the communities themselves may choose to focus those folks in that community on certain programs, e.g. nuclear to nuclear. And that's things that we're still working out as we head towards this pilot. I just wanted to touch on a few last areas before I pause and take any questions you might have. I've talked some, and I've tried to throughout the presentation talk about what does this mean vis-a-vis the Navy's approach to education, and hopefully what's come through loud and clear is the notion that while training and education or skills and competencies you gain both in your chosen profession, rating, MOS, in the schoolhouses, in your basic training, in your follow-on training, is critically important. That education too, and that commitment to 21st century skills, to critical thinking, to be able to navigate more ambiguous environments, is also something that is really important to the future operational readiness and warfighting advantage of our services. And this sort of investment in the U.S. Naval Community College is indicative of an interest and a support for education and the importance and the value of education for our service members. You heard me mention already credit for prior training. That is a fundamental part of what we've done. In my experience, it's something that the military has always done, quite well, both through its partnership with ACE and working hand in hand with other universities and colleges in terms of making sure that all appropriate learning is recognized towards credit. We want to make sure that we ourselves are able to recognize credit for prior training. In addition, we want to ensure that our partner institutions also are ones that are those that value that prior credit for training. To that end, and this will get into accreditation, we'll talk more about it, we actually will be pursuing ACE review for some of our courses as we proceed on a path towards accreditation. And it leads well to this path to accreditation. We are a brand new institution. We are very lucky and honored to be joining a very robust and well-formed naval education enterprise. So we're certainly by no means the first or only educational enterprise, whether it's the U.S. Naval Academy, Marine Corps University, the Naval War College, the NPS, the Naval Postgraduate School. We are joining a community of schools that have pursued and achieved accreditation, and moreover achieved excellence in what they are delivering. And so we're able to capitalize and learn from them. But we are also in the process of, and will be over the coming years, pursuing our own accreditation. As we push forward, as I mentioned, our first 5 Naval Studies core courses, we will be seeking ACE approval, American Council on Education approval, for those courses to be able to facilitate the transfer of those credits to our partner institutions, who will be the primary degree grantors in the early years while we're in pursuit of accreditation. And then we will be pursuing accreditation on our own as a military school that involves multiple steps in terms of going through NSECI, which is a part of the Department of Education, and ultimately pursuing regional accreditation through a regional accreditor that has a great deal of experience in working with schools that are military schools, in consortiums, and delivering online learning. And so we recognize that is really at least a 2 to 3 year process to get that going, to the extent that the USNCC itself can become the primary degree grantor, where we can accept the credits from the partner institutions. Nothing about consortium goes away in our model. It's a fundamental part of our model, but who the degree grantor is will shift. And when we have accreditation, it gives us the opportunity to ensure the alignment between those program outcomes that we're teaching and trying to achieve and the needs of the naval services. It allows us to make sure we are able to maximize credit for prior training. And it makes sure that we can ensure that we're delivering the strongest outcomes and the strongest value for our service members and for the investment that the Department and the Navy are making. So that's a little bit about some of the areas I wanted to touch on. this is just a snapshot of sort of what our transcript is going to look like, as well as our pursuit of that ACE review of credit that we're talking about, and a timeline around that. We'll be recording all the credits one earns, both to one's JST, Joint Services Transcript, as well as USNCC transcript, which will also be hosted and supported by the JST. And on that, I'll return to this as well, or I'll touch on this real quick, and then I'd love to pause and I'd love to take any questions that folks may have. What you have on this slide, and I'll leave things open on this slide for you, is a number of links and email addresses if there is interest in follow-up. In terms of that partnership and collaboration vis-a-vis working with the USNCC and becoming one of our partner schools for delivery of our programs, the link you see here is everything we're doing is through an IDIQ type of contract. You can often find information when it's posted up on these things about new task orders, new opportunities that will be presented, or you're welcome to email the email address you see here, and we're happy to point you in the right direction. And in addition, in terms of careers with USNCC, all of our jobs right now are posted on usajobs.gov. When they get posted, they're usually only up for a few days because often government roles get inundated. So monitoring them frequently is important, or we encourage you to email us at careers@usncc.usmcu.edu. At present, we are participating in the government hiring process, which we're required to do as a part of the Department of the Navy. And that means presently those positions have to be posted and run through USA Jobs. And certain preferences are afforded as per the rules with federal hiring, vis-a-vis prior government experience, military spouses, all sorts of other rules like that. But we are also in the process of seeking direct hiring authority, whereby for certain of our key academic roles, we should be able to hire directly over time, ideally by the end of this year. And so again, if there's an interest, we are and have been hiring for roles such as registrar, dean of institutional effectiveness or research. So if there is interest, please feel free to pass your information on to this email address. Then on that, allow me to pause there. And Melanie, I'm happy to take any questions that may have come in.
Absolutely. So the first question is, there are some questions about whether or not you would be willing to share or allowed to share your slides. Is that something that you are able to do?
It's a fantastic question, which I should have an answer for. And I'm going to presume that Ashley, you are sitting out there, and in the next few moments, you can come on in on the chat and Q&A, or just let us know if that is feasible or not. I will circle back one way or another. If for some reason I can't share all of it, we will share what we are able to put out there. I should have mentioned, and they're not on here, although perhaps they're on the next page, forgive me, and then I'll go back. If you are looking for more information, we very much encourage you as well to be able to take a look at our website and be able to, and feel free to follow us through any of these means as well. I'll go back and forth between these slides as needed. So Melanie, I'll get you an answer, but moreover, we'll share what we are able to share afterwards.
All right. And just in case they can't share the slides, know that this is recorded and sent. So if there's something you are particularly interested in, you can go back and re-listen and take down the notes that you might have missed. So all info is not lost. So we do have a few questions. I think that the first question has been answered, and it's about asking about if you would also be transcripting the training and soldiers participated in the past that previously earned them ACE credit. You already talked about transcripting past.
Let me touch on that, because I think there is an important distinction to make, and I think it's a great question. So a lot of this is going to have to do with what hat we're wearing and when. So presently, while we are not the university of record, because we need to pursue that accreditation process, and that partner school would be the college of record and the one granting the degrees, it's going to need to be the partner school for those first couple of years until we have reached what would be a pre-candidacy status and accreditation status that would allow us to be that school of record. Once we've achieved, so up front, until that happens, it's that partner school that it's going to need to make the determinations about what gets transcripted and what credit for prior training is given, as well as, again, one of the reasons why we're getting our courses ACE reviewed in the interim, because we will not, for these first couple of years, be an accredited institution of ourselves. It needs to be that partner school that makes that determination. Once that has shifted, and once we've achieved the first accreditation status, yes, in answer to that question, we have every intention of not only giving credit for the courses, those core courses they're going to take with us, as well as the up to 15, possibly more courses that come in from the partner institution, the Gen Ed and professional certificate, but also make sure that if there is prior training credit that would offset some of those, that we give that directly and that we do transcript that directly. But that would be a post initial accreditation approach.
That's great. And I'm going to jump down to a later Q&A because it's also connected. And it says, if the USNCC transcript will eventually be used to transcribe credit for prior military training, why not automatically enroll all US Navy, US Marine Corps, and USCC enlisted personnel into the USNCC? You could transcribe all of their training, even if they never actually enrolled in a USNCC degree program.
Well, I just have to ask whoever that is if they are a plant. No, that is it is a fantastic question, not one that's lost on us, and something that we are very seriously exploring. Our goal is to, like I said, crawl, walk, run. We're going to, we have a couple of year process where we're sort of demonstrating what we're able to do, demonstrate we can do it at scale, and then get to that point where we've achieved that accreditation status. But you're absolutely right. Once we have, there will be that opportunity to be able to potentially transcript a whole lot more education. And that's something that we are actively discussing and considering across the board.
Oh, that's great. Thanks. And I'll just give a shout out. That question came from Dennis Hicks, who is a veteran and a smart cookie, a Navy veteran and a smart cookie.
Hear, hear.
Also, another question, does USNCC mark the end of the program for afloat college education pace?
Does it mark? Sorry.
Yeah, does it mean the end of that
Thank
program?
Thank you. And I may, no, it does not. This does not. So the introduction of the USNCC is not necessarily the death knell for other related programs. I'd be hesitant to say that by any means. We are in a pilot stage. I think that, again, it's really important to recognize that, we have, and we're planning for a 5-year path and a 5-year fit up that brings us up to what we call, and in government parlance is FOC. You're basically you're at scale operating concept. And so decisions about impacts on other programs, it's inappropriate to make them now, nor is it necessarily, I wouldn't try to take out a crystal ball. To that end, let me answer preemptively and proactively, neither is this the death knell for Vol Ed or TA. Important to remember, we have, 700,000 plus enlisted service members, many of them in need of higher education. And in terms of our plans and our scaling, we're looking at scaling up over the next 4 or 5 years to, or 3 or 4 years to 15,000. So that's a tiny drop in the bucket. And we see lots of potential growth beyond there, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to the larger audience. And so what I would look at what we're doing right now is predominantly as additive as opposed to replacing. And there are different roles for different programs. And I would not necessarily try to equate the introduction of USNCC with anything insofar as discounting other programs that are out there.
Excellent. So another question came up, and there was some lively chat around the U.S. Naval Prep School. Does that still exist?
I'm going to guess, and is anyone who's on from my team, if you are tracking on it, I'm going to presume that means that the school that provides sort of preparation for those that are entering the U.S. Naval Academy. Is that what?
Yes. So yes, it's
Okay.
it's to prepare
Individuals to
for
enter the U.S.
enlisted
Naval Academy. At present, no, this does not directly impact that program. This program may help support those individuals who are looking to go from enlisted to officer type programs, but it does not change anything in terms of the U.S. Naval Academy's pathways.
Okay, great. And I think that is the end of the current questions. If anyone has any other ones, you have maybe a few seconds to start to pop something in. And I'll let Dr. Cosentino give any final remarks, and then I will give you a couple of ACRO remarks once she's all set.
Sure. Well, if nothing else, I mean, really, it's just to say thank you for affording us this opportunity to chat with this group and to begin to talk a little bit more broadly about what we're looking to do. I think what, for me on a very personal level, in terms of getting the opportunity to step in and take on this responsibility to build this new institution was really an incredible honor, because we have the opportunity, I think, to do a lot of things in a unique fashion. First and foremost, the service members that we're serving are uniquely deserving, and it's beneficial to make sure we're getting them that access to education, but the opportunity as well to try to do this in consortium, to do this and build sort of a best of breed type of solution, to be able to work with and learn with and coordinate with other partner institutions that are out there is just a really great opportunity. And so I'm so excited to work with many of you who are out there and learn from each other, and hopefully share some of our learnings to the extent that we can. A rising tide floats all boats. I should say, while we're focused here and now on being able to develop those two-year partnerships and to be able to support the delivery of that associate's degree, over time, and as we pursue accreditation, we as USNCC are also going to be looking for four-year transfer pathways. We want to make sure we're opening doors for students to be able to further their education. And so I hope that you all will see us as a collaborative partner in terms of educating our service members and moving forward. I'm seeing a note. I just paused to see if any some other questions have kind of come in.
Yes, there are a couple of questions. And so next steps for pilot 2. Are there next steps?
There are lots of next steps for pilot 2. In terms of those next steps, we have had, again, I can't see who's on necessarily, but quite a number of institutions are already participating in our IDIQ. That's the government contract, and that first step that is necessary to be considered for task orders in terms of participating in pilot 2. And those task orders get posted on that first link you see above for those schools that have an interest in those areas. We will be adding additional programs over the years. And so we are in the process of partner selection, which will be phased over the coming months. For each of those program areas, we'll be beginning a lot of our direct promotion to our enlisted service members starting in October about the specific programs and about their ability to apply and sign up for hopefully getting a spot as one of our first 5,000 students participating. And then throughout the course of the year, we will be sending students to in each of these program areas you'll see on the screen. You'll see where classes are beginning. It's a scale up over the year to try to make sure that we have time to support all those students as they transition into those programs. And for each of these programs, again, reminder, they'll be taking the 5-course Naval Studies certificate, and also the remaining 15 or 22, or sorry, 17 if there are extra courses needed towards the Associate of Science degree with the partner institution, with an emphasis on trying to make sure that they get additionally credit for training. So those are our next steps. We've begun some of our increased social media presence and communications, and that will even pick up as we head into October with more details around it. And anyone who's interested in more specifics can definitely send us an email at one of those info@ Or if we happen to have any enlisted service members on the call, we encourage you to go to our website at www.usncc.edu, and you can put down information to become a prospective student.
Thanks so much. There are a couple more questions, and I'm just going to encourage, it sounds like there's some very more specific questions about being a partner. Would they have to graduate the student? What are some of the matriculation considerations? And so I'm going to encourage folks to email info@usncc.usmcu.edu and ask those particular more in-depth questions. All right.
Sounds like a plan.
All right, fantastic. Well, then I am going to share my screen. And
thank you again, Melanie, and thanks for everyone who attended.
there we are. Oh, it didn't share. There we go. All right. Well, thanks everyone for being here. Thank you, Dr. Cosentino. That is absolutely fascinating. And I love the idea of starting from scratch, despite all of the challenges that you have to sort of go through. But it's kind of nice to go from a relatively clean slate. If you'd like to join us at ACRO over the next several weeks, we have a number of upcoming webinars. On August 30th, We Should All Be Feminists will be the August book club meeting. September 14th, we have a conversation with ACRO's caucus chairs on understanding intersectionality. September 16th is the monthly EDGE user group, and that is the ACRO EDGE International Database for Global Education. And on September 17th, the ACRO Women's Caucus will be presenting, ironically on Zoom, a webinar about Zoom fatigue. It's real. And sorry, my mouse is, I'm having a little mouse trouble. The session proposals are now open for ACRO's annual meeting. They are open until the end of the month. So you've got about a week left to get your session proposal in. And we hope that you will join us in Portland, Oregon in April of 2022. The ACRO Technology Summit virtual will be held September 29th to 30th. Registration is now open. In this meeting, we will be focused on the technology of data exchange and the technology of transfer. The virtual transfer summit, which was in July, was a great success, and we hope to see you at the Tech Summit as well. And our first opportunity post-pandemic, or since the beginning of the pandemic, I should say, we will be meeting in person November 14th to 17th in Miami, Florida. We've missed you all, and we hope to see you there. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. We look forward to seeing you online again soon, and have a great afternoon.